Welcome back to another episode. Today we're discussing Saturn. I love Saturn. I think it is absolutely life-changing. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it is. When you start to work with the energy of Saturn, you get not only results, but you get sustainable, long-lasting, permanent results, which are my faves. So if you're not familiar with the energy of Saturn, Saturn is the god of time and death. He also rules karma. He rules the law, the military, and anything that's related to long-lasting, sustainable fame, or just, results or notoriety in your own specific field, right? The Greek god that is connected to Saturn is called Kronos, which is why there's a lot of watches, for example, that has the word Kronos, or we see a lot of, branding that has that word in it, because it is related to Saturn, the god of time. Saturn is associated with the root chakra, which is why we cannot avoid Saturn for a very long time, because this is like the first level that we have to master as humans in this life. We have to master our root chakra, because if you're trying to build a house, for example, if the foundation is wobbly, like it's not solid, then of course the house is going to crumble. So it's the same principle with Saturn. If you don't master the Saturn teachings, basically your life is just like a roller coaster of like some random shit happening. Basically, that's what it is. And of course, when you look into your birth chart, you can look at your North Node, which is basically your life purpose, especially if it's a zodiac that is ruled by Saturn specifically. Then it means that like you really have to understand these principles to fully step into the person that you're meant to be, basically. So with that being said, oh, by the way, that's something I don't see a lot of people talk about for some reason. When I said, Saturn rules the law and the military, so you're going to notice that our society is actually based on the Saturn principles. The government, the justice system uses the symbolism. So even in the military as well, anything that's like related to the government basically has Saturn symbolism in it, right? And a lot of people confuse Saturn with Satan, which is not the same thing, but they get confused. They are related in a way, but it's not the same thing, not at all. Saturn is a feminine energy, but it's a feminine energy that is emotionless. That's why, for example, in court, emotional abuse is not considered as a crime. I think there's only three countries in this world, like on planet Earth, that basically says that emotional abuse is a crime, but only 3 countries out of all the countries in the world. Like, that's basically nothing, right? So when it comes to police officers as well, it's the same thing. Like, you can also see the colors of Saturn within, the military, the law, the government. So it's this navy blue. Navy blue is the color of Saturn. The color red as well. So that's why, the police cars have the blue and red light. What else? I mean, there's a lot of symbolism. Like, once you're gonna notice it, like, you're gonna see it everywhere, basically. So anytime you enter, like, even like a governmental building, for example, you're gonna notice these colors as well. Like, it's usually navy blue. A lot of banks as well use the Saturnian symbolism. You're gonna notice some of them use the Venusian green type of colors, and symbolism, but most of it, because the thing is, the bank represents the system where the water, the wealth the money flows in, right? But you need the root. You need the Saturnian root to hold that money. So it's just like in nature as well. Like you need the earth or these tunnels and crevices to like hold the water in. If not, the water's just going to go anywhere, right? So it's the same thing with Saturn. See it as the basis of life. You know, it's just, it holds, it's the foundation of life, basically. So when it comes to the Saturnian lessons, which I'm so surprised, I mean, am I really surprised? I'm confused as to why we don't teach kids that, because that's like, you know, it's so interesting that they're using all the symbolism of Saturn, you know, everywhere in schools. Actually, a lot of schools, you know, with the uniforms and everything, but they don't teach the Saturnian lessons. Some of them do. I went to private school when I was in high school, so they didn't use the word Saturn, but it was very Saturnian. There was no place to be emotional. It was very strict. So I would say that would be an example of it. But yeah, they in general, they don't teach the Saturnian lessons, or it just gets confused sometimes. So we're gonna actually dive into these lessons today. So the first one is the discipline and hard work. All right, so this is the first Saturnian lesson that we have to master as humans. Of course, this is going to be different for men and women, because men have a 24-hour hormonal cycle and women have a 28-day hormonal cycle. So hard work is not the same for the both of them. So of course, when I say hard work, especially for women, what it means is that you have to be disciplined when it comes to your vision. And being consistent in your vision is hard work, especially if, you know, of course, if you live off grid, like it's going to be easier. But if you have like a normal life and you're in the grid, you're going to have distractions. You might have people try to like bring you down, try to put, you know, obstacles in your way. So just holding that vision is hard work. So of course, this Saturnian energy, when we start to work with it, what's going to happen is that the obstacles and the distractions will start to fall away, which is why I want to teach all these Saturnian lessons for free on my podcast, because this is, first of all, the foundation of our society, but also when you start to work in harmony with that energy, this is when you get to experience, great results. You get to be on the good side of the law. You can win legal cases. You can, buy yourself properties. Like you just get into the like positive aspect of Saturn, not the one that gives you back pain and parking tickets, right? There's like a shadow aspect of the Saturnian energy. So the Saturnian energy like really encourages anything that's related to discipline, diligence, sustained effort. All right. So for example, if you have this goal of like going to the gym because you want to, get in better shape, become more healthy, just feel better, feel good about yourself, feel sexy, right? You're going to have to use that Saturnian energy to stay disciplined and to stay on this path of improving yourself. But of course, the day-to-day experience of the Saturnian energy is not sexy at all. It's actually kind of boring, to be honest. But of course, it's about sustainable long-term results. It's about maturity. So it's the opposite of, being wild and young and being blackout drunk on the weekend. Like it's like the opposite energy. So this energy really emphasizes the importance of, perseverance and hard work and achieving long-term goals. So you're really focusing on your future self instead of like the instant, pleasurable experiences, I would say. But of course, it comes later on. But this is like the foundation. This is the Saturnian energy that has to be mastered to then we can obviously move upper within the chakra system and work with the Jupiter and Venusian energy, which is way more fun, more expansive, and just very different. But the basis has to be there. Another lesson of Saturn is mastery. So to master this theme, we have to focus on setting realistic goals and creating structured plans to achieve them. So by developing routines and sticking to them, to be consistent, you have to be at least consistent for 30 to 90 days. So that could even be, listening to subliminals at night in your subconscious, that's very feminine. But that also is going to bring you a lot of results without the physical hard work of what men are basically bound to do on this earth because of their hormonal cycle, their biology. And of course, even if the progress seems slow, you still have to keep going. Even if you don't see results, you still have to keep going. This is also very Saturnian. So we have to embrace patience and persistence, and really understanding that true success often comes from consistent incremental efforts. And I know with social media, sometimes we get sidetracked because we're like, oh my God, this person went viral, on TikTok, or they became famous like so quickly and they're not even using it in a good way. So never compare yourself to other people. You never know, first of all, what they're going through in their personal lives. A lot of people don't even want to be famous. They are famous, or, they're just not very good at navigating this. So they're actually not making any money and it's not a fun experience for them. Or sometimes they're even trapped in contracts that are very abusive. So don't even compare yourself. Focus on your own thing and focus on just being consistent, because then of course you're going to build momentum energetically and you're going to have results at some point. Let me just grab a sip of water. So another Saturnian lesson is responsibility and maturity. So Saturn represents maturity and the acceptance of responsibility. So it really teaches lessons about duty, accountability, and the consequences of our actions. So when it comes to our past, for example, by simply taking accountability and moving forward, that's very Saturnian, that's very mature. And of course, one of the ways that we can do that is by stopping ourselves. When we connect with new people, we have to stop talking about our trauma, because what it does, basically, it just continues that loop of meeting new people and creating that same karmic loop where they're going to get abusive at some point. You're basically handing them the playbook to hurt you, because most people don't have the emotional intelligence. People get jealous. You just never know what happens with people. So you don't want to give them the key or the handbook to hurt you, right? But still, you don't want to dismiss your past. You don't want to pretend it didn't happen. But by taking accountability, you can actually move on to the third phase of healing, because the second one is acceptance and the third one is transcendence. That's when you transcend it and you focus on what you want. And so that's when you basically start to get what you want. And that's what I teach as well. When you meet a potential provider, sugar daddy, however you want to call them, potential husband, who knows? Sometimes they start with one label and then they end up with another one. You always want to talk about the future things. Of course, you don't want to tell them what you want and what your goals are, because they're going to use it against you, right? Because they're going to be, oh, if she wants to get married, I'm going to use that as a bait, right? You don't want to do that. But what you want to do is you want to tell them who you are and what you want. So, for example, by saying, I'm always spoiled, I always get treated so well by people. If you start to make those statements as you're, sitting down at a date, at a restaurant with them, you're basically programming their subconscious mind to treat you that way. And you can also tell them who they are, right? By telling them, oh my God, you seem to me like a very generous person, you seem to be very, close to your heart, and you're very nice and generous to the people around you that you care about. Even if they're not, you just set the standard for them, right? That was just a quick example. But to go back to acceptance and accountability, that's very Saturnian, very healing as well, because you basically move into this like more mature part of your life where, well, first of all, you get to experience these new things, new people, new situations where you get treated the way you want to be treated, and you basically move forward and upwards with your life. So when it comes to mastering this energy of responsibility and maturity, so by taking responsibility for our actions and decisions, and by becoming reliable and dependable in our commitments to ourselves, this is when we start to get results. So by working on developing a sense of maturity, by reflecting on our experiences and learning from them, what was the lesson? What was the lesson or lessons by connecting with that specific person? Because usually relationships are mirrors and they trigger us for a reason. What was the lesson? What were the lessons that you learned in the past? And you can also write them down, of course, to better understand yourself and to make sure that you're not making them as well, like in the future, of course. And also, you can, like I said, accept the consequences of your actions without blaming others. This is one of the biggest Saturnian lesson that, unfortunately, a lot of people haven't mastered just yet, because that's in the root. So the opposite of that, usually when we see people who have an imbalanced root chakra, they blame everybody and their grandmother and their cousins for their shortcomings, right? It's always the economy's fault, it's the president's fault, it's the neighbor's fault, it's their boss's fault, it's their wife's fault, it's their children's fault. Like, it just never freaking ends. It's a karmic loop, right? So by accepting accountability and accepting the consequences of our own action, and by stopping, by not blaming others, and finding excuses can be very simple as, for example, you arrive late at a meeting and you're like, oh my God, I'm sorry, there was traffic. That's an excuse. And that's something that I learned actually from hanging out with so many multimillionaires and billionaires. When I would do that, for example, I would arrive late and I would be like, I'm so sorry, there was traffic, blah. All of them, and they don't know each other, would tell me, don't make excuses, just accept the fact that you're late and say thank you for waiting for me and sit down and start to eat. Like, who fucking cares, So that's something that I had to work on that I don't do anymore. But yeah, that's just a very small specific example. But this is really about the root. And feeling this need to be saved by something, by a politician or some galactic federations like Jesus, like there are so many different ways this imbalance in the root chakra really happens. Because here's the thing, it happens within the childhood when a child feels powerless. This is when this wound becomes amplified, I would say. And so when we become adults, it just gets put into this different type of situation where, for example, you feel powerless when it comes to the RRS. When you have the RRS coming for you, this is Saturn and your root chakra that wants to initiate you into this level of maturity, because they usually come together. A lot of times men also deal with, this is my cat, I'm sorry about that. Thank you. A lot of times we also have men dealing with divorces while they're going through the RRS investigation and everything else, or going through a legal case, because it's all connected to the same type of energy. It's all connected to the law, it's connected to the government. So of course, when you start to work with this Saturnian energy, and I have an episode about how to create an altar, that can really put you on the right path instead of going against that energy, because going against that energy is very stressful. It's not fun. You feel powerless most of the times. You feel like the law is against you, that people are against you. And so when you really start to get onto the harmonious side of Saturn, then you get to experience the opposite. Let me grab another sip of water. This is going to be a long episode, actually. I mean, longer than usually what we do. So, but I feel like it's like the basis of life. Like, we have to know these lessons. The other one is limitations and boundaries. So Saturn often introduces limitations, delays, and obstacles. So these usually can feel very restrictive, but they are intended to teach you the value of boundaries and self-restraint. So how do we master this lesson is by recognizing and respecting our own limitations, by using them as opportunities for growth. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, rather than sources of frustration. So we basically learn to become bigger than our problems. We become more powerful than our problems, but the whole initiation is usually that very difficult or unfortunate experience with any of the themes that we discussed that are related to Saturn, right? What else can I add to this? So by learning basically how to set healthy boundaries in your personal and professional life, you're basically developing self-discipline to manage your time, your energy, and your resources effectively. So the other lesson is all about structure and organization. So Saturn is associated with structure, order, and organization. So it really favors systematic approaches and well-defined frameworks. So how do we master that lesson? We have to organize our life by creating structures that support our goals. We have to develop skills in planning, time management, and prioritization. We also have to embrace routines and habits that bring order to our daily activities. And we have to understand the importance of rules and frameworks in maintaining stability and progress. If you're like me and you don't like authority, this lesson might seem simple, but you might rebel against it at first because you don't want to be part of our society and blah, blah, blah. Like I went through the whole thing, right? I have a lot of dark feminine energy as well, a lot of Lilith energy, but the Lilith energy needs that structure as well. And that's something that I don't see any spiritual practitioner or witches or however you want to call us, like light workers, shadow workers. I don't see anyone talk about the Saturnian root of Lilith, because of course, the Lilith energy is so important when it comes to self-worth and embracing our sexuality, and instead of suppressing it, right? Because a lot of times when people get too Saturnian, they just completely suppress their own sexuality, they suppress their emotions, they suppress anything that's related to the feminine energy, and they just keep the light, not even the light feminine, it's like the fake light feminine, that Eve type of energy of like this woman that's like super submissive and doesn't have an opinion, like, right? And so a lot of times we might even be put into a situation where we are expected to be a trad wife. I went through that very shortly because my Lilith energy is so powerful. Like she came through. That's actually how I was awakened. Like I was initiated. Like I was just doing some laundry like in the house and being a housewife basically. I wasn't married, but whatever, I was at home with the baby. But yeah, that Lilith energy just came through, and I just rebelled against like everything. But of course, when obviously I became more mature, I learned that we need to have the Saturnian root, not only to raise children as well, because that's how children feel loved. By the way, they need more than a routine. They need also love from their mothers and their fathers as well. But it's mainly through having a routine. This is how children feel safe and feel loved and cared for. This is how the masculine energy, especially the father, Of course, there's the wounded masculine, which is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the divine masculine. The divine masculine is a provider, a protector, and we can also see it in nature. For example, the masculine energy provides resources, like little birds, like they build a nest. So then the little birdies have like a nest to, stay in and be protected. So, let's get to the next lesson, because if not, I'm gonna talk about for like 2 hours. So the other one is wisdom and reflection. So Saturn is a teacher of wisdom through experience and also reflection. So it often brings challenges that once they are overcome. I don't know how to phrase that. They basically lead to profound personal growth and understanding. So how do we master that lesson? By reflecting on past experiences to gain insight and wisdom, by engaging in introspection and self-assessment regularly, and also by learning from our mistakes and view challenges as opportunities for growth. And also one of the ways could be to seek out mentors and wise figures who can provide guidance and support. And of course, you want to make sure that you choose the right mentor who really understands the Saturnian teachings, so then you can be led on the right path, basically. Because a lot of times when I see all these courses, and I used to be the student of these courses, these courses that basically tell you how to unlock your prosperity and your purpose and how they're connected, blah, blah. Every time I bought these courses, and they were so cheap, like so cheap, but it was a time period in my life where I had to decide, am I eating today or am I buying this course? Like, that's how broke I was, basically, because I had no knowledge, no recollection of any of the ancient knowledge that I have. I can laugh about it now, but trust me, it was not funny when I was going through it. So I would buy these courses, and first of all, I wouldn't make any money, so I felt scammed out of my money, and I was like, great, now I don't have money, and I cannot eat today, and I'm gonna have to drink water. Because basically what they were Jupiter teachings or Venusian teachings, which are great to like amplify. Like, it's almost like, the pyramid of Maslow. The first like layer is like physical needs. Like, if your physical needs are not met, you cannot move to that second phase, so it was just a whole mess. And like every time I would buy a course, and I didn't know about Venusian, Saturnian, Jupiter, like I had no idea. But now that I look back, I can see that it was just my lack of knowledge basically that made me suffer so much. And it's because I was being shown Jupiter and Saturnian teachings prior to mastering Saturn. So the courses, by the way, that I think it should be free, actually. That's why I don't even sell Saturnian teachings. I offer them for free on my podcast, on my YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, Pinterest. Like, I try to spread it everywhere, but it's free because I think it's just the basis of life that everybody should know. Even, I could sell it for like $20 or like $30 because, of course, the pricing has to be related to, the people's level of consciousness. But still, it's like, you know what? I'm giving it for free. I'm selling the upper ones, like the ones that are higher, like the Venusian and the other ones that are higher, but I'm not selling the Saturnian ones. That's just my personal thing. All right, let's move to the last lesson, by the way, of the Saturnian teachings, which is patience and timing, because like I said, Saturn is the god of time. So Saturn really teaches about the importance of patience and timing, and it really emphasizes that some things take time to develop and mature. How do we master that? By practicing patience in our endeavors, by understanding that significant achievements often require time, and also by learning to recognize the right timing for actions and decision and avoid rushing processes and trust in the natural progression of events. All right. If you want to look, by the way, at an artist that has been using a lot of the Saturnian teachings and symbolism, of course, there's a lot of artists and singers that are doing that because they know that it creates long-term fame, right? Their work basically gets recognized. That's what it is. It's not some like shady, egoic type of fame. It's like this long-term divine fame, basically. It's actually Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is ruled by Saturn, like if you look at her birth chart. So she's a good example of that. And she's been, breaking records when it comes to her career. So if you want to look into how she's been using the Saturnian teachings, she's been using it actually through her music. She's been using the power of words because, that's why we call it spelling, because words are spells. She even has a song that's called Karma. I'm not gonna sing it, but you can listen to it and look at the lyrics. It's basically a song that's dedicated to Saturn, so you can also look into that if you're interested. So yeah, that's it for today's episode. I'm gonna do more, of course, on Saturn, but yeah, that was just a little introduction. So let me know if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, and I'll see you tomorrow.